Dogman's best friend. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I had a kind of a Dogman experience that I don't think you've covered on your channel yet. I had a pet dog who recognized a Dogman as his alpha male and was willing to follow him anywhere, and I'm gonna tell you about them. When I was a kid, we woke up one morning to find a little tan-colored dog, medium-sized, fluffy tail, bright eyes, his leash tied to the doorknob on the outside of our front door. My father said he'd leave if my mother kept that dog, but she responded saying she was naming it Perky, so then Dad shut up. Nobody actually called him Perky, though. We called him Sandy after the color of his fur. Sandy had a face sort of like a wolf, but a very civilized and cute one. He was the happiest little guy I ever met, and he never misbehaved or snapped at your fingers or growled, except at cats and squirrels. He loved all of us right from the start. He knew how to play fetch with a stick. He was already trained to be a perfect pet. When my father would come home from work, Sandy would stand up on his hind legs and do a little dance, spinning in a circle, and we'd all laugh. So eventually he even won Dad over and became a full member of the family. Or so we thought. Although we would take him for walks, we were kind of a lazy family, so sometimes we just let him out into the backyard to do his business and clean it up the next day. We didn't have a fence on our backyard, but that dog wasn't the type to run away from free food. One night, Sandy asked to be let out into our backyard, so I let him go and walked away from the back door. Then, I heard him doing his little daddy's home dance, yipping and yapping and jumping up and down so his collar jangled. Curious, I backtracked my steps and looked outside. What I saw there was more than surprising. It was paradigm-altering and even life-changing. There was our dog Sandy, doing his little dance up on his hind legs, spinning around in a circle. This time, however, he wasn't doing it around my father coming home from work. No, this time Sandy was dancing submissively and perkily around the tall, muscular, squirrel-gray-colored, furry, Schwarzenegger-shouldered behemoth of a canine, walking upright on his hind legs. While Sandy jumped up and down, the big dog-headed bear man just strolled calmly, like a G. People say I never describe the Dogman in enough detail whenever I talk about this old story, so I'm going to try to remember everything I can about his appearance. When I try to do this, then other people complain that I couldn't possibly remember so many details from a story that happened so long ago. Well, if you had spent years being told to supply more details about the Dogman that you saw, then you'd have sat and closed your eyes like I've done so many times, and you'd try to slow the moment down in your mind, and you'd try to make note of as many details as you can see in your mind's eye that you never articulated before. It's one thing to be there in the moment, see a tall Dogman with your pet and react quickly. It's another to close your eyes, focus on the image that caused your panic, and study that image for what it can tell you. Well, I've already indicated that this was like an oversized man, but it was far more intimidating than any human male could be. Imagine a muscular man over 6 feet tall walking naked into your yard. Now imagine he's covered in gray fur and has a head like a wolf. I feel like his claws were somewhat hand-like, but I don't recall him doing anything that would indicate he had opposable thumbs. I did not see him holding an object in his hands, so he may have just had paws, but that does not feel true to me. I get the sense that this was a creature who could use his paws or claws as hands, but he did not, to my memory, actually display this ability in my presence. So I might be wrong about that. He walked like a badass, taking long but slow steps, surveying all around him, paying no heed at all to Sandy, who was leaping up and down at his feet as though he had just come back from winning the World Series single-handedly. That Dogman acted like he was used to this behavior from neighborhood dogs. He acted like he expected this kind of a reaction. I also remember noting that the legs he walked on were canine back legs. This was not a Bigfoot with a long snout. This truly was an upright walking canine. It had canine legs. It had triangular canine ears up on top of its canine head. The chest was very manlike, and its shoulders looked like those of a human bodybuilder. But still, I would classify this animal under the canine or lupine families, not the human one. So, back to real time in that moment. I needed to get my dog back inside, but he clearly saw that 7-foot-tall cryptid as his alpha. He had never danced around like that for me. I needed something to tip his interest back in my favor. I ran inside to the cupboard, and I grabbed a box of medium-sized Milk Bones dog treats. Then I ran outside, shaking the box loudly and calling for Sandy. This is not a paid ad. My dog back then really did like the Milk Bones best of all. I looked around the yard nervously, not seeing Sandy anywhere anymore. By the time my eyes swept to the furthest right corner of our property, though, I spotted him. Sandy was seated, facing the corner as though he were being punished. The Dogman must have walked off into the woods at that corner of the yard. Sandy's head kept turning back and forth between looking at the woods, then looking at the box of Milk Bones. Eventually, hunger won out, and he ran back to the house. I brought him inside before giving him a milk bone. I didn't want to risk him grabbing it, then running off into the woods to his new alpha male with it in his mouth. After that, I had a serious conversation with my parents. I told them that a large male alpha dog had come onto our property and that Sandy had almost left with him. I didn't tell them about the dog walking up on its hind legs because I needed them to take me seriously. I insisted we chain Sandy up when he's outside so that he couldn't run away. My father said he didn't want to spend the money on a chain, and my mother was convinced that Sandy would somehow manage to strangle himself with it. Oddly, my father, who didn't want to spend the money on a chain, sprung for the much more expensive electronic fence setup. It was an invisible perimeter, and if Sandy got too close to the edge, he'd receive an unpleasant experience in his collar that would cause him to back up. Maybe it was that element of punishment that appealed to my father, I don't know, but I felt satisfied that Sandy was safe and that he wasn't ever going to run off into the woods after Dogman or anything else. Problem solved, right? Wrong. One night I was passing the door to the backyard and I heard Sandy doing his dance outside. I grabbed the box of Milk Bones from the cupboard and I charged out there. I didn't see our sweet dog Sandy anywhere, but I found his collar on the grass at the edge of the yard. Had he taken it off himself, or had someone or something taken it off for him? We searched the woods for days, and on each day I left another bowl of dog food out at that corner of the yard, hoping he would come home to eat it. We never saw Sandy again. He left as quickly as he had arrived. The one saving grace about it, that I know but nobody else in the family does, is that nobody else knows that he left with someone he really looked up to. He left his human family for a canine alpha who also liked to stand upright on his hind legs, which was always Sandy's trick since even before we got him. Who knows? Maybe he had some Dogman blood in him, and he was returning to creatures who had figured in his heritage. Maybe after traveling with that big Dogman for a while, he met others like himself and had a family. I like to imagine that he had a long and full life in the wilderness, and that he passed a legacy on which survives to this day and beyond. Because my cute dog Sandy turned out to be Dogman's best friend. Hey everyone, it's the new Henry Lee Dogman throw pillow. It's just like laying your face up against me, except the claws and teeth on the pillow won't tear you to shreds, hooray! Also, it doesn't smell like a wet dog, woohoo! Look right below this very video to find out how to order. It's the softest way yet to support the channel and keep us online. I caught my Great Dane playing around with Dogman. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I've got a weird little Dogman story for you. At first, I didn't realize I was dealing with a Dogman at all. I used to leave my big, giant, black Great Dane Harley Quinn out back at night, but over this past summer, I learned that this was not a safe thing to do. One night, I awoke to a ruckus out back. I got up and grabbed a weapon and headed outside, only to find some kind of dark-colored wolf creature playing around with my dog Harley Quinn, chasing her around the yard in a playful manner. That creature must have had legs almost as long as a horse, and the two of them were having a ball, roughhousing, tearing up my lawn, knocking everything in the yard over. It might have been cute, except that it was costing me a lot of money, and the size of that wolf or a dog was so large, there was no way my dog was safe around that beast. Plus, I live in Wisconsin, not Canada or Alaska. Wolves that large are not supposed to even be here as far as I've ever heard. I felt bad ending Harley's fun, but I fired a round into the air to scare the thing off. Well, the two of them stopped playing when I did that, but neither of them seemed all that scared about it. They separated, and the wolf-like thing trotted away a few steps. Then the big old creature turned to give me a dirty look. He got this really insulted expression on his face, and then that dog did something I never would have predicted. He just sort of leaned back into an upright standing position, on his hind legs, I mean. Then, keeping me in his sights, with his head turned back over his shoulder, he did this sort of haughty, insulted walk out of my yard, as though I were in trouble, and this Dogman was in the process of reporting me to my manager at my job. That's really what it felt like. It was like he rolled his eyes and sighed heavily before leaving, but he was gonna go get me canceled on Twitter as a payback or something. It was like he thought I should thank him for sniffing around my Harley's behind, like that Dogman thought he was better than me. I know Harley thought he was the ginchiest. She made a move like she was gonna follow on after him, and I actually had to grab her and bring her back inside. Now I've got my Harley sleeping inside at night, and she isn't happy about it either. I wonder if that wasn't the first time she's met up with that upright walking suitor. She tries desperately to get out the back door at nights now. The wood around the edge of the door is all scratched up. I'm monitoring her for signs that she might be pregnant. I'm nervous what kind of pups those might turn out to be because I caught my Great Dane playing around with a Dogman. My cat made friends with Dogman. Dear Scary Stories NYC, my family had a big old giant Maine Coon cat who wasn't afraid of anything. My grandfather named him Connie after Connie Mack. You'd have to look him up in Wikipedia because I forget who Connie Mack was, but according to Grandpa, he was thick-skulled, like our big old Maine Coon cat. One time a bear cub walked up to the edge of our tree line. Connie just looked up at that baby bear yawned, and then he went back to sleep. Connie himself was almost as big as a raccoon or one of those oversized hares. He looked like a Photoshop edit, even in real life. He was so large that workers who came over to fix things couldn't believe he was just a house cat. They thought he must be some kind of exotic wild animal from Africa or even another planet. He was bigger than you'd figure. Connie slept through dogs barking at him. He slept through challenges from stray cats. He slept through neighborhood kids throwing stuff at him. He'd never sleep through a visit from our local Dogman back then, though. You see, I grew up on a property in a part of Michigan where Dogman was just an accepted part of life. Looking back on it, I only remember a couple specific times that I actually saw the creature with my own eyes, so I'll tell you about it, but you should understand that the expectation of seeing them was not so rare. We knew they were few in number, but we knew they were out there in the woods around us. The number of predators is always more rare than prey. That's just how the world is built. Things had changed by the 1980s. I don't think I ever saw the Dogman after 1977 or 78, but for about a 6-year window starting in 71 or 72, we all knew that the werewolves, or whatever you want to call them, were real, and we didn't treat them any different than any other predator. The exception, of course, was Connie the Maine Coon cat, because he really liked the Dogman. He'd always get up and go over and make a big fuss when the Dogman came around to visit us. Now, when I'm talking about the Dogman, I'm talking about this werewolf-type creature that a number of us in our neighborhood were seeing back then. It was kind of like the big bad wolf from the cartoons. Black fur, stood up on his hind legs, ate Little Red Riding Hood for breakfast and the 3 little pigs for lunch. The thing looked evil to me. It had this guilty appearance, as though it had always just done something wrong. It always looked like it was sneaking off to wherever it was going next. Everything about the creature looked shady and dishonest, but our cat Connie just adored him for whatever reason we never really did figure out. The Dogman was big and he was tall, and so he was frightening to us humans, but he was kind of gangly and thin, not the muscle man that a lot of people talk about in modern Dogman stories. His arms and legs were so long. We used to joke in my family about the long arm of the Dogman, like it was the long arm of the law. Don't mess with the Dogman. He could reach over from Wisconsin or Canada and grab you by your shoulder. The Dogman itself would never actually enter onto our property as far as any of us ever saw. It would stand at the edge of it, looking in. Connie would trot out, then rub himself against the lower legs of the creature. He'd walk in and out, making figure 8s back and forth between the creature's legs, as though he loved that old Dogman. The canine would not really react in either way toward Connie. He didn't seem to mind the attention, but he didn't reciprocate. I myself, as I mentioned, saw this happen I guess 3 different times during my childhood. The encounters seemed to last until the Dogman would eventually notice me watching the interaction. At that point, the Dogman would pretty much leave, but it wasn't like he ran off. I hadn't scared him. He didn't run away. He just seemed to think of his time with the cat as over for now, and then he'd walk off to whatever else it was that a Dogman had to do at night in Michigan in the 1970s. And although I'd always be glad when he was gone, I don't remember being any more scared of the Dogman than I was of, bears or cougars. I have little doubt that the Dogman is a terrifying cryptid, and I have seen it with my own eyes, so I know for a fact it is real. If I had known that the rest of the world wasn't sure of the reality of its existence, I think my family and I would have taken an effort to get some photographic evidence to show all of you. And since it stopped coming already by 1980, I guess the evidence would have been in the form of a 1970s style snapshot photo. I wish we had thought ahead and tried to get pics of that old Dogman. While doing so, we might have also snapped a photo or 2 of old Connie. then I'd have some evidence to prove to you that my cat made friends with the Dogman. He's the cure, that's for sure. 99 and 44 100ths pure. Our executive producer walking through the door is our newest channel member named Richard McClure. Please join us in welcoming our newest channel member, Richard McClure, whose kind contributions help make this episode possible. In exchange, he gets to peruse our comments section for secret members-only posts giving links to secret uncensored videos far too wild to ever run on this channel. He can also check out our over 21 hours of archived scary uncensored Dogman stories as well. And so can you. Just join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com, or else do what Richard McClure did and click that join link under this or any of our episodes. And now here's our spokesdog Henry Lee Dogman with more deets. Hank? Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked what you saw, please consider clicking like on the video or sharing it with your friends and family that you think might also be interested. If you would like to see more of our work, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon next to the subscribe button so that YouTube will alert you when we put out a new video. To become a channel member and gain access to our special perks, you can click that join link under each of our videos. Another option is to join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. You can join for as little as 99 cents on YouTube or $1.50 at peterbernard.com. And that gains you access to our weekly secret uncensored episodes. If you'd like to see our 21 hours of archives of uncensored Dogman stories, then please join at the $3 level or above. To get to watch our shows in advance of the public, please join at our $10 level. That gets you all the perks. If you join our channel memberships, you need to check our community page here on YouTube in order to get the links to the secret videos and other perks. If you're in the PayPal subscribers club, Peter will email you all the news and links himself. Once joining the PayPal club, which is Peter's homemade club, please give him a chance to see that you've joined and to compose you a personal welcome email, as none of that is automated. But whichever you join, we'll name you an executive producer for the next available episode. Do you have a scary experience that you'd like to share with us? You can email us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or call our Scary Stories voicemail hotline at 804-LA-SCARY. That's 804-537-2279. It's a Google voicemail box, so that means it keeps cutting off after every 3 minutes. If your story is longer than that, please keep calling back and we can piece it together on our end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.